Hey everyone, today in this video, I'm going to be checking out the ZOTAC Gaming. This is the RTX 4070 Super Twin Edge OC. If you're interested in this GPU or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. Now let's look at this GPU up close. Front and center, you'll see our dual fan design with ZOTAC's logo and branding, silver, shiny plastic cover with some texture cut out there. Looking at it from the top, the ZOTAC Gaming will illuminate for us, and we got GeForce RTX. Take a look at the power connector right there. Side profile. We'll look at the bottom, get a feel for the heatsink there. Here's all of our connection options. So we have 3 display ports, 1 HDMI, 2 slot thickness. And then looking at the back, got a metal backplate here. ZOTAC's logo, GeForce Gaming, live to game. Nice cutout here we can see to the back of the card. Now it's time to get this installed, to benchmark it, to see how it performs. Benchmarking's finished. We'll be comparing the ZOTAC RTX 4070 Super to ZOTAC's RTX 4070, as well as ZOTAC's RTX 4070 Ti Super. I also have a couple other metrics we're going to be going over to help us understand and get a better feel for the performance of this card before we look at our FPS value. So, first up, you'll see cost. This is in the middle of the lineup. It's going to be a couple $100 less than the 4070 Ti and just a couple dollars more than the regular 4070. In regard to length, this is measured in millimeters. The 4070 comes in at 226 millimeters. The 4070 Super comes in at 234 millimeters, and the Ti Super comes in at 307 millimeters. Here's a look at that card, and you can see them side by side right there to get a better feel for that length. 234 versus 307. Next, let's talk about the width of each card. The 4070 comes in at 2.2 slots. The 4070 Super is your standard 2 slots, and your Ti Super is 2.5 slots, so it's a big boy. In regards to power, this is measured in watts. The 4070 has 200 watts of rated power. 4070 Super 220 watts of rated power, and the Ti Super 285 watts of rated power. Next, we have VRAM. This is old GDDR6X memory. The 4070 and 4070 Super have the same memory capacity and same 192-bit bus. The Ti Super adds 4 extra gigabytes of memory capacity, and it has the same 192-bit bus. In regards to boost clock, measured in megahertz, the 4070 and 4070 Super share the same 2,490 megahertz boost clock, whereas the Ti Super has a 2,625 megahertz boost clock. Next, we have CUDA cores. If you haven't noticed the pattern yet, the 4070 and 4070 Super have the same 5,888 CUDA cores, whereas the Ti Super has 7,688, a pretty substantial upgrade. Now, moving right along to gaming performance, we have Forza 5 1080p, 4070 rocks 155 average FPS, whereas the 4070 Super has 173 FPS, and the Ti Super has 194 FPS. 1440p has your typical decline due to the increase in resolution. 4070 comes in at 131 FPS, 149 FPS for the Super, and 168 FPS for the Ti Super. Rainbow Six is a game I thought about throwing out this data because we no longer have the 4070 sample on hand to verify anymore, but for some reason we magically got 272 FPS at 1080p for Rainbow Six with our 4070, whereas we only got 225 FPS for the Super and 217 for the Ti Super. I'm not sure why the Ti Super is lower than the 4070. In our testing, that was true. So anyways, really unusual for this particular result. If you look at 1440p though, things seem to start to level out. 4070 has 178 FPS, followed by 203 for the Super and 217 for the Ti Super. Assassin's Creed 1080p, 154 FPS for the 4070, 165 FPS for the 4070 Super, and 176 FPS for the Ti Super. 1440p shows us 116 FPS for the 4070, 126 FPS for the 4070 Super, and 147 FPS for the Ti Super. Far Cry 6 1080p, 122 FPS for the 4070, 124 FPS for the Super, and 124 FPS for the Ti Super. Also an interesting game with the same findings here within 2 FPS. That holds steady for the 1440p test result as well. The 4070 does decline to 113 FPS, whereas the Super and the Ti Super stay the same at 124. Also not sure what's going on with this particular test result, so take that with a grain of salt. Moving right along to Borderlands 3 1080p, we're showing 131 FPS for the 4070, 135 FPS for the Super, and 139 FPS for the TI Super. 1440p brings us to 107 FPS for the 70, 116 FPS for the Super, and 130 FPS for the TI Super. Now, I just threw a lot of data at you. What does it mean? How do we make sense of everything? Because there seems to be a pretty substantial variation game to game. Typically, what you'll find is true to the models. The 4070 will be a little bit less in performance than the 4070 Super, which will be a little bit less in performance to the 4070 Ti Super. But I wanted to quantify that in a better way for us to truly understand, on average, what can you expect? So the 4070 Super, on average, gives us a boost in performance by 9%. On average, you'll see a 9% increase in average FPS. The TI Super, on the other hand, gives us an 18% increase in performance. All of this is compared to the regular 4070. If we compare the 4070 Super to the TI Super, we'll see a 9% increase in performance as well. And we can actually quantify that in another way, which is through the cost. So we just looked at the average performance increase between the models, but what's the average cost? What's the average price increase? So to go from the 4070 to the 4070 Super, you'll spend an extra 11%. Now keep in mind that gives you an extra 9% in performance. I like to see if the average FPS can pass or exceed the cost percentage. In this case, we've closed the gap, so it's really only a 2% difference in performance to price. So better than nothing, especially when we look at the TI Super cost percentage right here. So going from the 4070 to the TI Super, you'll spend an extra 56%, but you'll only get an extra 18% in performance. So it really starts to increase exponentially. Now, going from this 4070 Super to the TI Super, that's going to be a 40% price increase. And if you remember, we only get a 9% boost in performance as well. So where does that leave us with our ZOTAC Gaming RTX 4070 Super? Well, let me share with you my final thoughts. Here's what you need to know. In regards to price to performance, it's clear that the TI Super is not the card to get, and it really comes down to what does your budget allow, because really you're upgrading at near a 1-to-1 ratio from the 4070 to the 4070 Super. So at that point, the value's equal per se, but again, slightly better, I guess, for the 4070 for what you're getting, but it's nice to see almost a 1-to-1 upgrade ratio there in regards to average FPS percentage and price increase. So if you value slightly better performance and your budget can allow it, you're probably going to be better off landing on this one. If you don't care and it's good enough, well then save a couple bucks and just get the regular 4070. Now, talking about build quality, something we can't really quantify, I personally like the aesthetic of ZOTAC's 4000 series cards. I like the rounded design and corners. I think that's great. We have a metal backplate, so we have some high quality construction here. There is some LED lighting up at the top, but it's not RGB. It's going to be your fixed white ZOTAC gaming light. I wish we had some RGB options there and a splash for the fans to control. I think that would be fun and a welcome addition to a card like this, especially if it's not going to increase the cost of the card. It'd be cool to have some of that on there. So at the end of the day, 4070, 4070 Super, the choice is up to you, but I'd probably stay away from the 4070 Ti Super.